Oh my gosh. Hey, it's Romania Black. We're on episode 7 of Yona of the Dawn. The last episode was so good. So good. It had action. The battle between Hawk and the Fire Tribe soldiers was amazing. The choreography, the animation on Taejun's face, on Hawk's face, on Suwon. We got some insight into Suwon's character and his backstory. Just a tiny trace, but it was enough to give us a little bit of insight that this has been something that has been in the works for a while. And I am just so excited by all of this because we've met the priest that they've been talking about, and there's also Yoon. And Yona was badass. She chopped off her hair Mulan style and just was like, screw it, I'm gonna save Hawk. And it's just, last episode was my favorite so far this season of the series, and it was so good. So good. I've actually bought the first two the first two volumes of the manga. I'm gonna wait a little bit before I read them, but I've bought the first 2 volumes because I just couldn't wait. I was like, no, I know that this series covers volumes 1 through 8, and I was like, I'll just go ahead and get the volume and just have it, but I'm so excited. And this episode is called God's Will, which I'm assuming is talking about the priest. So that's gonna be really interesting. But y'all, I couldn't wait. It's only been a couple days since episode 6, and I was like, I can't wait. I need to know what happens with the priest. I'm so excited. But this series, y'all, it's so underrated. Why are more people not watching it? It's so good. I've needed this shoujo romance in my life. This fantasy romance, I've needed this in my life, and it has been so long since I've been able to like savor a good romance like this. Like, this whole thing's gonna be a damn slow burn, but girl, I want Yona to come around and realize that Hawk really loves her. And it's like, girl, because every time somebody's like, oh, is that your lover? And she's like, no. And it's like, but it could be. So, all right, y'all, I can't wait. I'm so excited for this episode. So let's get into this, shall we? We are going to start episode 7 of Yona of the Dawn. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's go. Oh my gosh. We're getting into the mythology, my friends. The lore, the world building, it's all getting bigger. It's slowly but surely getting bigger, and I'm kind of here for it. So our bumbling priest, I really like him. I really like his character. I like that he is a really good character. He's not like shady or manipulative. He actually is kind and considerate to a fault, and he's very pure, and that makes sense for his character. And Yoon is the representation of the slightly more cynical one that's like, I have to watch over you. And so, yeah, but like his eyes, and fuchsia eyes, like shining through. So driven out of the castle for making dubious claims about hearing the voice of God. And the fact that Yona doesn't even know why. It's like, and Yoon's like, you lived in the castle, but you don't even know why he was driven out? Interesting. So yeah, this looked a lot darker. The OP looks darker, and we've gotten some into the original King Hiryu. And the dragons, it all makes sense. But here's my thing. I'm like, Hawk is the Thunder Beast, but he's not one of the original dragons. So where does he fit into the lore, right? Because clearly, I think that, yeah. Oh, okay, it's not a dragon anymore. It's like a wolf, right? It looks like an actual beast. It doesn't look like a dragon anymore. So, Raiju, the Thunder Beast, he's not a dragon in the OP anymore. Interesting. Okay. So the question still is, how does he fit into the story? So it sounds to me like Yona is the reincarnation, the rebirth of King Hiryu, right? Because she has the phoenix motif, the idea of rebirth and reincarnation. And then she has the red hair like the original King Hiryu, who basically, built the kingdom. So interesting. So she possibly could be like resurrected, like the reincarnation of him in a sense. Interesting. That explains why the hair doesn't come from her dad. So curious. And we finally know what the ending in here is: the 4 dragons being sad about the king dying. Wow. Okay. And the sword and the shield. Well, it looks like the one dragon is the shield, and is Hawk the sword? So yeah. So I like the priest. I like Iksu. Iksu's great. I like his character a lot. You can tell Yoon feels sorry for Hawk. Poor Hawk having to heal this episode. And Hawk's like, and Hawk tells Yona, he's like, you should thank him, which she hasn't really done yet. He's like, you should thank him for saving your life because he's done so much for you, you know, and you should thank me. And she does thank Yoon, but she hasn't thanked Hawk yet. It's like, But yeah, we need to talk about this. So the priest warns Yoon, he's like, you should be kinder, but it's established that Yoon does not like kings and nobles because he doesn't think that he thinks they look down on people like him and they're not grateful. So it's nice that we get Yona to be around him. And then the priest is like, but she is fighting, you know, in her own way. So she's trying. So just be nicer. Iksu's trying to, you know, play devil's advocate, oddly enough, on her behalf in a funny, ironic way. But so Iksu gets her to go on a walk with him and to talk about why he lives out there and the idea that... And so there's this really interesting concept throughout this, the idea of man versus God and the idea of the power of everything and like belief and faith. There's an interesting discussion here, and it contrasts with Suwon from the last episode really, really nicely. So... And poor Iksu, he's so clumsy. He just keeps falling and hurting himself, but he just still smiles. He's like, everything's fine. And then they go back to the edge of the village and everything. And Yoon establishing that Iksu went through a period where he was depressed because he went to the city and he couldn't save everybody. And so he was sad about it. It's like, that's really heartbreaking that he couldn't help everyone. So he just became depressed. And so that's why Yoon got him to come out here so he wouldn't see so many people at once. But he says that line, even here there are flowers that bloom. So it's like even in the most dire of straits and even in the most desolate of places that seem hopeless, there's still flowers blooming. There's still hope. So there's that representation that even though Yona's kind of at her lowest point at this exact moment, her and Hawk are like have nearly died. They don't have anything. They're on the run. There's still some positivity and something they can make out of that. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, going back to, we find out that Yoon is not a priest himself. He just looks after Iksu because he feels like he needs to. But they established that long ago priests had greater influence than even the king. So that makes a lot of sense that originally it was more spiritual and the priests would have more influence. And they were revered as messengers of God. And so then we get into this. Priests were deeply involved in ruling the kingdom. And we get the priest from the OP that has the wings. And sometimes they even influenced wars. Which is interesting, right? Because you would think that a priest wanting to be like noble and, you know, righteous wouldn't want to start a war to begin with. So that's interesting. And it says one priest even deposed a king saying he had angered God. So he basically killed the king because he said he'd angered God. And the priest became a problem for the king. So then, yeah. So during King Junam's reign, Kwoka Kingdom was expanding into other kingdoms' territories and growing stronger. So we get background into Il and Yuhong's father, Junam. So as Junam was king, he was expanding his territory and making his kingdom stronger. And we see the battle between them. And then, apparently Prince Yuhong's achievements played a major role. So we get this view of Yuhong, right? This is a much different view than what we've seen from Suwon, right? And even Yona's childhood. This is a much different view of Yuhong. That it shows Yuhong with this like more sinister glare with the flames and fire of war behind him and all these corpses piled up. So this is a very different perspective than we've gotten so far in the series. And it's not that Yoon outright says that it's, you know, that he's like that, but you can tell from his perspective, this is how Yuhong appears. Interesting. For Yuhong, the priests that could threaten the king's power were a nuisance. And so he drove out the priests, including Iksu, from the castle. Okay. And then Yoon establishes that they need to live in the middle of nowhere because the villages are troublesome and Iksu needs to relax and he can't easily there. And he says that Iksu would die without him. But here's the problem. If Yoon follows them like in the OP, then where's Iksu? Because he said that Iksu couldn't live without him. So y'all better not be killing off Iksu anytime soon. Nah. Unless Iksu's like, no, I'll be fine. You go with them. I'm hoping that's the case. Interesting. But yeah, Yona wanting to become stronger, wanting to learn, wanting to become her own person and not have to depend on Hawk so much, being able to fight alongside him instead of behind him. I love that idea. I love the idea when a character wants to grow stronger so that they can defend themselves and fight alongside someone. And so yeah, I did get a little worried when Hawk disappeared, but then it made sense. He went to go find his spear. He wanted to go find his spear out in the woods. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. Sure thing. But yeah, and then she trips, of course. And then she's like, damn it, I'm not strong enough. I tripped over a rock. I need to become stronger so that I can help protect Hawk and not have to worry about him. And then, yeah, sure enough, he shows up. And then he's teasing her. He doesn't realize that she's crying over him, basically. And God, the teasing in this episode. The teasing, y'all. The teasing. What the heck? What the heck? And then Hawk tries to play off his joke. He's like, oh, I understand you can't sleep alone, so I'll sleep next to you. And she's like, that's not what I'm talking about. And yeah, she's just been worried about him and not wanting him to die over her because he's behaving recklessly. Yeah, she said, I thought you were going to die. And he's like, oh. And she's like, you need to stay with me. Stay by my side. And then he's like, I made you worry so much. So he says, I want to die now. He's like, and he says, I've had all I can take of that ugly crying face. And he tries to be flirty. He says, and it's like, I really want to die. He's like, I don't want to see you in pain like that. And then, yeah, he like, oh my gosh. He's like, I'd like to see how much you'd cry then. I was like, girl, no, he was about to kiss you, damn it. He was about to kiss you and you didn't get it. He was being flirty and what does she do? What does she do? What does she do? He's about to kiss her and she headbutts him to try to check his temperature. And even then he says, if it's not okay, just turn your head. And it's like, no, that wasn't it. He thought she was rejecting him. And she's like, no, I thought you wanted to check your temperature, so I stuck my forehead out. And his face, he's like, she didn't reject me, but... Right. The fever's making me irrational. And then, yeah, she gets right up next to him, and she's like, but it's come down. Putting his head next to hers. Show how moronic. How moronic indeed. I can't with it. And then he tries to apologize for the hair, and she passes it off saying that it's lighter, but here's the thing. She's not totally over Suwon, and because she still kept the ornament. And I like at the end of this, she was gonna throw the ornament away. And there was a part of me, the Hawk shipper in me, that was like, yeah, throw it. But then the other part of me was like, no, she doesn't throw it away because she wants to try to figure out and get to know why Suwon is acting like this. She wants to try to get to the bottom of the story and the perspective. And it's like, But poor Hawk, because he's like, I have to stay by your side like it's so easy. And he gives her like the flirty, teasy compliment. But he's like, she doesn't have enough hair for it, but she still kept the pin. So Hawk knows that Suwon's not out of her mind. And you can tell Hawk's like, she hasn't thrown away the hair ornament. So it's like Hawk doesn't want to move in because he knows she still has feelings for him. But it's like, I don't know if her feelings so much are romantic for Suwon anymore as they are for her just trying to figure him out. Like, I like by the end of this, Yona establishes she wants to get stronger and be able to defend herself, but also help take back her kingdom. And she keeps the hairband because she's like, I want answers. I want to know why Suwon's done this. So the Hawk Yona shipper me wanted her to throw that pin away. But the other part of me is like, no, I'm glad she kept it because then she can go after answers and try to get Suwon to tell her what's the whole reason behind everything. And then, yeah, the priest waking up. And I love his eyes. His eyes are so beautiful. And it looks like that Yoon's making like egg McMuffins, like English muffins, like little bread rolls, and Hawk's just sitting there eating all of them. And he's like, stop it. I'm assuming he was going to take that to the village maybe and try to sell them. Don't eat them without asking. And he's like, please, priest, grant me your hospitality. So cute. And he's like, I'm not a priest. I'm just taking care of one. So yeah, under the waterfall with the rainbow, the priest next to the two waterfalls. Then we get into this. This is so good. I've been wondering if there's like any mythological, supernatural stuff going on in this series. And last episode when we talked about the gods and everything, I was like, oh, are we going to get into this? And then he's crying because like God spoke to him. Like he's weeping because he's heard God's voice. And he's like, oh crap. Ah. So yeah, the idea that I was dreaming about you. So maybe seeing the future possibly about you in this world. Would you like to hear the voice of God? So it's basically like, do you want to hear this prophecy, like this prophecy that has been spoken? And so Yona's like, well, Moondog did tell me I needed to go find a priest and talk to him. So you're supposed to show me some kind of path. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. And she's like, I know. She's like, I thought I was supposed to sit still, not do anything. But, you know, everyone else nearly dying, myself included. Like, my blood is boiling. I need to do something. I can't just sit here. I'll go insane. And it's like her blood is hot like a sun. She's like, I can walk on my own two legs. I need to learn what to do. I want to live. I won't let anyone take my life or Hawk's. And she's like, that's all I want. And she says she has nothing to ask God. She's like, here's the thing. She's like, I don't have anything to ask of him because she's like, I know that I can do things. And so I don't need him to help me necessarily. She's like, I'll become stronger. And then Iksu says, no, for you, living doesn't mean spending your days in ordinary peace, right? For him, for Iksu, he's like, your life will create a storm that will shake the kingdom of Quokka. And it's so fitting that it's going to create a storm. And then we have Hawk, who is the Raiju, who is the thunder beast, right? And I talked about like the storm metaphor in episode 1. And we're coming back to that. So, oh my gosh. Yeah, creating a storm. And that's when everybody else shows up. He's like, about to speak some prophecies. If you wish to simply live an honest life and cannot stop the hot blood in your veins, I'll convey the voice of God to you. And it's like doing the prophecy here. And I love that it's like the constellations and the stars and the purples and reds. It's beautiful. This is beautiful, the scene with Iksu. So when darkness falls upon the land, which we can assume can be now, the dragon's blood will restore life once more. In accordance with the ancient pact, when the 4 dragons are gathered, the sword and shield that protect the king will awaken. So the question is, the sword and shield that protect the king will awaken. So the blonde one has a shield in the opening, so that could be the shield, or it could be somebody else. I had the thought that it was the blonde dragon that was the shield, and Hawk would be the sword, right? That will protect the king. But what if Hawk was the sword and Suwon was the shield? And because here's the thing, even though we're setting up Suwon as like an antagonistic character, I don't think at the end of the day Suwon is the main villain or going to be the main villain. I could be wrong, but I don't think at the end of the day he's going to be the main villain. I think someone from one of these other kingdoms, as darkness falls upon the land, is going to be the main enemy. And so I could see in the end game Suwon and Hawk both helping Yona be the sword and the shield for her. But God, if that happens, she better pick Hawk at the end of this. If she picks Suwon after all this, I'll be like, no, girl. So, yeah, interesting. With the 4 dragons, the red dragon will return at dawn. And the red dragon being Yona, right? Yona's got the red hair. She's inherited it. And then, of course, Iksu's like, bloop. Conveying God's voice requires spiritual strength. So then the question is, the dubious claims that Yoon brought up. Did Iksu make some kind of claim about Yuhong? About maybe Yuhong's death or something like that? Or his demise? And Yuhong got really mad about it and so he sent the priest away? But it seems like he was maybe foretelling some prophecy. Interesting. And so, again, I was like, I don't know what this business is about dragons or gods. So Hawk seems skeptical. And says, but I'm not buying anything this crackpot's selling. And Yoon's like, he's not selling anything. And then Yona, of course, knows about from her dad's storybook that he read her. It's like, does the red dragon in the prophecy mean the mythological king and the creation myth. So yeah, the red dragon god took on human form, which is the original king, Hiryu, and descending from heaven to rule a kingdom on earth. He was the first king, King Hiryu, who has red hair just like Yona. Yep. My father used to tell me about him all the time. But once King Hiryu became human, okay, he eventually had to fight humans. So we're getting into this story here. The people's hearts filled with evil. They forgot their God and their country fell to ruin. So, yeah. And I'm going to tie this back to Suwon, because Suwon almost seems like when he had the coronation ceremony, he was like denouncing God, saying, I don't want to be around a God that just watches. I believe in people instead. So it almost seems like he's following the same path that's happened throughout this story. Even King Hiryu was captured by humans who desired power. Just when everything seemed on the brink of destruction, the gods sent down 4 dragons. And that's the 4 dragons that we see in the opening. Yes. And they say, Hiryu, we've come for you, and let us destroy the humans who have forgotten their faith and return to heaven. So they were like going to punish everybody and go. And Hiryu rejected them, saying, no, I'm human now. I've already done this. Though the humans may hate and betray me, I cannot help but love them. There's a little bit, so there's a little tie to like, if you're a Christian, there's the tie to like to Christ, saying, because there's the idea that though, people may hate and betray him, that he still loves them regardless. So there's a tie to that. I like that. I like this spiritual tie that despite hatred and betrayal, he still loves them, and he can't just destroy them. There's a purity there. And I wonder if that's going to tie to Yona and Suwon, that though Suwon may have betrayed her, and though he may hate her or hate, what he does, at the end of the day, she can't help but love Suwon, even if it's, I want her to end up with Hawk, but even though I feel like she's going to love Suwon no matter what, even though he betrayed her and even though he killed her father and she may hate him for it, at the end of the day, she's going to love him. I don't know if that's what it's tying to, but it seems like it might be. The dragons loved Hiryu as well and did not wish to lose him. So it's like, it's setting up these dragons. They're going to love Yona too, right? I see where you're going, show. I see what you're doing, what you're throwing down. So in order to protect Hiryu while he's in human form, they gave their blood to human warriors and granted them strength. So, okay, making these guys like demigods. One gained sharp claws, the white one, they could tear apart anything. The blue one gained eyes they could see across great distances. So we have the mask maybe to protect their eyes so they don't get injured. One gained legs that could jump high into the sky. And one gained a strong body that could never be injured. Okay. Interesting. You'll serve your masters and protect them with their lives. But it said that's where the tribes came from. But so I don't know. With the power of the dragon gods, the warriors led their clans to protect Hiryu and brought order to the kingdom. Okay. And then before long, the red dragon grew tired of fighting and fell asleep. It's meaning that they died. Oh, and they're so sad that he died. Aww. They didn't know whether they grieved the loss of something precious or if the dragon blood, god blood within them mourned Hiryu's death. So I don't know if it was them or the dragon gods that was mourning. And so yeah, realizing their power is beyond human control, they basically just exiled themselves from the tribes and disappeared. Interesting. So I'm curious which dragon corresponds with which tribe. That's the interesting part. Forming the 5 tribes of today. But there is, I guess it's Hiryu's tribe, the sky tribe, and then it'd be the sky tribe, fire tribe, the wind tribe, and the water tribe, right? Well, there's earth, fire, water, wind, right? And then sky. Okay. Makes sense. And he's like, you can't stay here. You're going to be endangered. So you got to go. And then you have Master Hawk supporting you. But if it's just Hawk alone, he's going to die eventually because one man can't protect you. And then Hawk's just like, well, don't assume I'm going to die. I'm pretty strong. And then Yoon brings up the point and he's like, yeah, not really. He just punches him in the side. So we've got a quest. We've got a quest to go find the dragons. I'm so excited. He's like, your situation's grave. You need to go find these dragons. You need allies. And if the 4 dragons get brought together, then Yona's gonna be the 5th dragon. Okay, cool. Nice. I still can't believe they baited us with Hawk being a dragon, and now he's like, the Raiju actually has, and the dragon, the Raiju is actually just like a literal thunder beast. Nice. So, I like that Yona's just excited that her fairy tale story is real, and Hawk's trying to say that they're not, and then Iksu's like, no, they're real. It's fine. They do exist. They're basically immortal. They have blood of dragon gods, so they're basically immortal. You just gotta go find them. They're just exiled hermits right now. But if you go find them all and gather them, they'll lend you their strength. And Yona's saying, I don't want Hawk to die. And Hawk's like, oh, but I'm not sure the legendary dragons will lend me their strength to someone like me. It's like, oh, girl, they probably will. He's like, no, you guys escaped death against all odds. You escaped the castle against all odds. You survived the fall against all odds. It's because God's been leading you here. He led you here for you to find both of you, to heal you both. No, these were not miracles. They're God's will leading you here. And I like the shadow that goes over. If you find the legendary dragons, then yeah, it will not be only your wish, but God's will. And the sun comes out on her. It's really cool, symbolic. Yeah, the idea of God's will. Roll credits. And then we see the butterfly breaking out of the cocoon. Yes. Heaven can only show you the way. You have to walk the path yourself. Interesting. I like it. I like it. So good. But yeah, so we have this idea. This is where I'm getting the thing about Suwon. Is that she's going to throw the pin away. And she can't do it. And she says, I want to know the feeling of others and many other things that once I passed by heedlessly. I want to become stronger. And then, yeah. And I was trying to get to this one point. Yeah, she's just saying that she doesn't know anything. She didn't know anything about this world. And we tie back to Suwon killing the king. And then, yeah, Hawk, her trying to think. I kept thinking that she'd thank him, but she hasn't got there yet. And Hawk's trying to persuade her. He's like, I'm not going to die, you know. I'm going to be okay. And she's like, I want to meet the people with the dragon blood. And Hawk's like, well, why in the world? And he's like, they may not exist and they may not be your allies. So what's the point of us wasting our time to do it? And she's like, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I can't leave this place unless we found them. It's like, I need to move forward. I need you to teach me how to use a bow. Teach me how to use a sword. I want to be able to defend myself. I'll figure it out. But I don't want to die as I am now. And I don't want to lose you either. And so I love this line. To prevent that, I will acquire even the power of the gods. And so that's the line. That's the line I was trying to find. Because in the last episode, Suwon is like, even if someone tries to come to the kingdom, be it a person or a god, I will crush them. And meanwhile, Yona is like, I will acquire even the power of the gods to be that one to come to Suwon to his doorstep that he's going to have to crush. So we're just setting up that she's going to become the power that he says he's going to crush. And we're just setting up that final confrontation of Yona and Suwon. It's in the OP, them looking at each other and him having the hairpin. Like, it's all being set up. So that's so exciting. I love that we have confirmation about the dragons. Hawk's not a dragon, which is kind of sad, but he is a Raiju, so I'll take a Thunder Beast. It was going to bother me throughout the entire series if he was a dragon, but he wasn't fitting in with the other 4 dragons. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So I like the idea that he's not a motif of that. Although, I'm curious where the whole Raiju fits in on this, if that's part of the legend. And Hawk's like, well, fine, I'll teach you. I'll take a chance on God's will or whatever it is. Oh, I like it. I like it. And he's like, quit getting close to me. It's annoying, but it's like, it's not annoying. Well, it is annoying for Hawk because he's like, I can't do anything about it. But yeah, and so meanwhile, old Yoon has been making her robes. Yoon's been doing everything. He's been cooking food. He's been sewing. He's been healing wounds. He's a regular old Cinderella over here. The boy needs to be paid more than he is currently. But, oh man, I really like Yoon's character. I like Iksu. But I really love the concept of this lore building with the dragons and King Hiryu, who was once a dragon himself, and the idea that that power's like been reincarnated with Yona. I love it. I've been waiting to figure it out, like what's the deal with the dragons, and it all makes sense now. So yay, that's exciting. Exciting stuff. So yeah, I love this episode. It was really, really good. I liked episode 6 is still my favorite, but this one is definitely up there. So I'm so excited for episode 8, y'all. I cannot express to you how excited I am. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what you all thought of this. But the fact that we're getting closer, that they're actual dragon-blooded people with mystical powers, I'm excited. I'm super excited. But yeah, and we got the Raiju. So what more can we ask for? So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what y'all thought of this reaction. Thank you all so much for watching. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with more Yona of the Dawn. Bye.